Welcome to Citizen Assembly Thunderdome, where we test ideas and hone debate skills in a real-life social political arena with a goal of holistic balance. If you'd like to participate, find out how in our podcast description. Let's start with a round of introductions for our panel. We've got about 30 seconds apiece to tell our listeners what's on your mind in the moment, and I'll start first. Hi, I'm Tommy Weir, and my major focus is taking over the world with a holistic and heart-based motive. And what's on my mind in this moment is rest. I feel like resting right now, and from doing so goddamn much, right? So next we have Cezary, the creator of Egora. Please, Cezary, tell us what's on your mind in the moment.
Well, I'm really happy to be having this discussion today, presenting this idea about animal liberation. I just got off a radio show where I already started this discussion, and it's going to be great to continue it here. Hopefully we can get a little bit deeper because we have a little bit more time and have some more perspective. So I'm very excited about what we're going to talk about tonight. Thank you, Tommy.
Yes, thank you. And pass it on, Cezary, if you would.
Staci, please introduce.
Hi, I'm Staci Gustafson. I split my time between northern Michigan and southwest Texas. My major focus is holistic community problem solving. And what's on my mind in the moment is how great it is to have Tommy hosting. I cannot wait to sit in on this show and see how much fun we have with Tommy hosting. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And then who do we have next, Staci?
Oh, I'm sorry. Cynthia?
Hello, I'm Cynthia Leonard. I reside in Chicago and Pennsylvania and sometimes in parts in between. I am a philosophy person. I live philosophy. I love philosophy. I don't think there's enough philosophy in the world, and I think that it is the philosophers who are going to make the world a better place, which is why I work with and organize with Egora-ilp.org. I also host Citizen Assembly Women on Sundays. I am also a regular cast member in the Thunderdome Podcast, and we also have meetings on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. You can find our meeting links in Egora-ilp.org. Joy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Joy, you're muted.
Thank you. So I was talking to myself. I'm Joy D. Snow. I live in Gun Barrel City, Texas, 70 miles southeast of Dallas. I'm originally from San Diego, California, basically La Jolla. I am Bruce Disher's mother, and learning about Citizens Assembly and many other things in my life that my son has introduced me to, and just thankful to be here. What's on my mind at the moment, other than Bruce and his circumstances, is a very dear friend who just left in tears, abused as a child, and the parents don't recognize the emotional or physical abuse. So if I was going to do anything other than take care of my son, it would be look at children that have grown into adulthood and seriously need help and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joy. Yo, what do you know, Joe? You want to introduce yourself?
I am Joe, and I have an issue being late of late. And so, anyway, nice to meet you all.
Perfect timing. What's on your mind, Joe?
Oh, I've never been to a Thunderdome. I wanted to see what it was like.
So that's on your mind at the moment. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that.
Yeah, cool.
It's like no other experience in the world.
Right. So thank you very much for our panel and for our guests tonight for sharing what's on your mind in the moment. Let's move on to today's presentation, shall we? And today we have Cezary. who is presenting Animal Liberation, which has been written up to share with others in Egora, the worldwide stock market of ideas at egora-iop.org. And Egora is our online platform where people from around the world can turn their ideas into policy to build a better world. Now, I will start screen sharing this idea from Egora, and Cezary, you're welcome to proceed with sharing.
All right. Let me drop this on the screen here real quick for everybody. Oh, I think I'm looking at the wrong thing. So this idea, if you look me up in my ideological profile, it's in the 22-point position. This is essentially my most important practical idea. It's following a much more theoretical, really my system of ethics. And this idea very much is related to my system of ethics. And of course, it has other down the line practical implications. But it's a very short idea, so I'm just going to read it. It's got a couple of link references, and I might share some of that quickly. We'll see how things go. But let me just start by reading it. The most fundamental component of reducing overall violence and suffering in the world is to ensure freedom from captivity for all animals, including humans. To achieve this goal, no one should be allowed to hold captive any other animal, especially to breed them or to harm them at a later time. And then we have the links. Then we have the link references. The first link is to a video showing all this factory farm footage and in general how animals are treated. We could bring that up on screen. If somebody doesn't behave, if somebody is not saying nice things about animals, we're going to bring that up on screen. But the other link here, it's the kill counter. It's a I'll show that right now. Actually, it's basically a website that approximates how many. It just says animals killed for food since opening this page. It shows you how many animals have been murdered by humans from the time that you open this page, and what you see is instantly numbers skyrocketing. We're already in the past 10 seconds, we're already past 500,000 of wild caught fish, 45,000 chickens in the past 15 seconds or so that humans have killed for food. And you can see all those other animals. So yeah, the point of this is to show people the gravity of the situation, because oh wait, I didn't mean to stop screen sharing, because the essential thing here is about minimizing violence and suffering. And so what is the most significant way to minimize violence and suffering? And the point of that is to show that most of the violence and suffering, and those numbers, just so you know, it's approximately like 80 billion animals every year, not million, but 80 billion animals every year are killed for food by humans. So those numbers are astronomical. It's greater than the population of the world of humans has ever been. Like, if you took all the people in the world who have ever lived in like the past 20,000 years, it doesn't amount to that much. So that's how huge the numbers are. So anyways, and that's every year. So this just goes to show you the scale of that. And the point is that if you want to minimize violence and suffering in the world, then essentially, it's one thing to clarify. This idea is not saying that everybody should be vegan, because I think some people, if they feel that they really must consume animal flesh for health or survival, well, then that's their animal right to do that, to hunt to survive. But we're talking about really the numbers that have been inflated by humans holding animals captive to breed them and to kill them, to then breed more and to kill more, and just keeping that cycle, constantly going, yeah. So anyways, I want to pause here and hear what you all think about that, and hopefully we get to explore all the different perspectives of that.
Thank you very much, Cezary. Let's measure the panelists' initial agreement, our panelists and guests' initial agreement with this idea. Let me see a show of hands. Who supports this idea?
Oh,
And then keep your hands up so that they can be counted.
So I see that we have Cynthia and Joe. Is that right? Just those two?
Cynthia,
Oh,
looks like Cynthia, Joy, and myself.
okay, Cynthia, Joy, and Cezary support or agree?
I support this idea.
Okay.
I support that we need to protect our animals. Yes.
Okay, we've got it.
Who,
And then
may I add something to that? I don't believe we ought to mistreat or kill animals just for our benefit, but we have to control some populations, or so I have been led to believe all of my life. My mother's brother was an activist in Department of Fish, Game and Wildlife, or Department of Interior Fish, Game and Wildlife. And so he was an advocate in helping the animals, but also controlling them so that they don't injure one another and try to fight to control their own population. So that, I think, needs to be taken into consideration. We've even seen that with humans in a controlled environment where they fight for survival. So yes, I support protecting the animals, and I don't know where we draw a line.
Well, I just quickly say to that, the main population we need to control is the human population. That's the population that's out of control.
That's
Yeah.
true also.
Well, I mean, if I'm sorry.
Are you proposing that we free the people in prisons?
Now,
Cezary?
Well, okay, so obviously this idea goes in many directions. It's a very philosophical idea, because one of the points of this idea is to acknowledge that humans are animals, and humans deserve to be treated like other animals with the same dignity that animals deserve, which is freedom. So essentially, this idea dovetails into the other idea about criminal justice system reform. That our criminal justice system, and this is it's the 16-point idea I support in my ideological profile. It's saying that the criminal justice should focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. And if somebody really does not want to be confined, within the correctional and literally correctional institutions, then banishment. Then they should be free to leave to a natural, well-guarded location. So people should be able to choose banishment if they, as a form of, I think, the best kind of justice. I mean, that's their fundamental animal right, is to liberty, to live in the wild.
can I say something?
I think Joy is going to jump out of her chair if she doesn't. Joy and Cynthia are going to jump out of their chairs if they don't get to respond to this.
So I believe that the justice system needs vast reform, without a doubt. And my son is a perfect example of that. But I don't get what Cezary's saying. Somebody commits a crime against me or humanity, and extreme circumstances violently takes the life or more. So your opinion is that that person gets to choose their own punishment, and we're going to let that person, okay, back in the day when leprosy was a health issue, there was an island, I don't remember what, but all people with leprosy were sent to the island. So what you're saying is that Mr. Smith murders a family and he gets to choose his freedom, go to an island and in exile, but there's other people there in exile, so we're going to leave them there to do themselves in, and the strongest guy wins. That is definitely the jungle, because the tiger's going to eat the squirrel.
It's a wonderful place where people like that can eat one another to survive. Yes.
Can I just say that we're supposed to be passing the discussion on to people who we see their hands are raised? I just want to mention that to everybody.
Hello, Cynthia.
And Joy, I will tell you, you just described the beginning of the continent of Australia.
But the point is to not give people like that a whole continent so that they can develop industry and create a country. I mean, and because essentially, because the thing is, okay, if you are putting violent criminals, and of course, what kind of people are you really sending there? Most people who, and again, the criminal justice system should be there to rehabilitate people. So first of all, they have to acknowledge that something is wrong, that something is dysfunctional. And so how do we fix it? Like, if somebody is messed up, you don't mess them up further to make them functional. You actually build them back up to be a functional member of society. Some people you cannot do that with. They are, well, they're psychologically damaged. But then again, maybe what they really need is mental health, help, assistance. Maybe they really just actually need to be in a hospital, not in a prison. So these things are really complicated. Yeah, I mean, it really is complicated, but the essential thing is, okay, if somebody commits a crime, how long is it going to take to rehabilitate them? Because maybe all they need to be rehabilitated is just to pay a fine, and that's it, and they can go back. Maybe they killed somebody in an accident. Maybe their tire blew out or something, and that's how they killed. But maybe they killed somebody because they planned to, and so there's a whole range of why somebody. What are the justifications for actually committing a crime? But the point is that we get people back to a functional state. For some people, that might just be a very minimal amount. For other people, it might take 1 year. For other people, it might take 20 years. For other people, it might take the rest of their lives, and they will never be okay. And so they should just simply be separated from the rest of society. But if they don't want to be confined in a rehabilitative institution, and if they want to go to the island, then okay, then they can live with other people just like them. That's their choice,
Pass it on to Cynthia.
Yeah, I actually wanted to go back to the origin of the idea, because as you well know, I happened to read a book called Ethics in Action, which was entirely about the animal rights movement. And the suffering that is inflicted on animals that people don't even think about, like a lot of people don't even realize that the meat that they buy in the store came from a live animal, let alone the suffering that was inflicted on that animal in the process of making it food. And I would point to the kosher beef, where they would have to hang the oxen, not the oxen, but the bulls by the back of the legs, because they're not allowed to touch the floor, and they're like shrieking in pain right before they kill them off. And the amount of suffering that's been inflicted is just unbelievable to me. And I don't understand how people don't care more about this. But I can also say that for a long time, I never realized, I knew that meat came from live animals, but it never even occurred to me that they were inflicting this kind of suffering just in an effort to do a lot cheap. And that's all I have to say.
And then Staci.
Yeah, so there are rehab programs for people that are working, and they're just so much better. They're proven. Why are we not setting those up in prisons everywhere? And I guess I can kind of answer my own question. Apparently there is profit in keeping people in jail. I don't know how that can possibly be, but we know that there are programs out there that can be instituted that will help. So it's just silly that they aren't there now. And so are you saying, Cezary, release all the animals, like even domesticated animals?
Well, Joe's got his hand up, but so I'm going to make a note of that. But yeah, I'll come back to that point. But I want to make sure Joe gets to speak. So I'll hold off on answering that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you're talking about freedom, and prisons, and there's the prison of the mind, of course, and I think maybe what we ought to start doing is also assessing where it is that we're missing in the collective psyche. Like, what values are we not looking at? What intellectual processes are we generally not adhering to? And rehabilitate everybody. We got a maturity problem in the United States, I think, that we have to fix, I believe. And everyone's got their problems, and we just have our own problems too, and I think we need to work on them. Yeah.
I would like to share real quick before Cezary shares again. Yeah, I like the idea personally of the banishment and the rehabilitation. I was sharing in the chat that I assume that people wouldn't stay too long in the banishment because it would be pretty havoc and suffering, just like in the prison, and there's many people that would rather be out of the prison, but they have to stay in there for 10, 20, 30 years without a choice. Maybe get off a few years earlier, but it's still not too soon, so I believe that would be definitely a great voluntary thing for them to be able to have that choice to be banished and then have their moment of suffering and then really desire rehabilitation and then come back after they've had that, that banishment. Because I don't think it would be too fun. It'd be like, like if you really think about it, they're going off to banishment to probably a gang infested society. And then they'd want to come back and have their safety and security and peace again. But as far as animal liberation, though, I don't know what to say about that yet. I don't think we've talked too much on that besides prisons and all that. But I'll let Cezary go ahead and go, or whoever's next.
Well, with the whole idea of banishment is that once somebody is banished, they're banished for life. So they don't come back. But at the same time, there might be other societies who are willing to take them in. I mean, the point is to say is you don't belong in our society, but hey, maybe there is some other society that is functional and they can accommodate you there. So if the US puts its, if one of the most dangerous criminals or whatever, like, I don't know, like a psychopath killer, instead they don't want to be institutionalized for the rest of their life. They want to live on the island, or maybe they can hunt and kill other people just like them. If that's their thing and they want to be with other people just like that, good on them. Go ahead, you kids go play.
Right.
So
Yeah.
We'll even give you a few knives. Or no, maybe not knives. Some dull, rusty. Improvise. Make some tools and make the best use of what you got. Right. But maybe the people of France would be like, you know what? We don't have enough psycho killers over here. Let's take those people in. So so that's on them. That's their problem. Don't go to France. I'm just joking. So there are many different ways of handling on that. But the point is maximizing freedom and actually not punishing persons for the ways in which they are born, including that maybe they're born a psychopath killer, or they're born a lion or a cow or a pig or a chicken, right? So it's to recognize the personhood and just the condition that others are in. One thing, but I wanted to answer Staci's point before I stopped talking, because Staci, you were kind of like surprised because this seems like a mind-blowing idea to you. Like, wait a minute, all of those slaves, we should let them go? Yes. And but here's the thing, because I don't think that we should, obviously, okay, there are like billions of animals that are currently held in factory farms and whatnot. And what I'm talking about is literally the kind of emancipation that happened after the Civil War in the United States, you know, with millions of people being freed from servitude. But of course, those animals, like they would not survive in the wild. I mean, it's just completely unnatural. Humans have purposefully inflated their numbers beyond any, like, you know, any natural reason. And actually, one really interesting fact, and I'm not going to state this properly, but the point is not the details of this. What's really interesting, and I saw this statistic, that like 100 years ago or something like that, it was, I forgot if it was 100 years or like a few hundred years ago, only like 1% of the animal biomass on the surface, on land, on all of land, was humans. Humans and human livestock. Only like 1% of all the animals that are essentially on the planet, living not in the seas, but living on land, or either humans or, you know, the captives of humans. And now it is 99%. Like 99% of all the by weight, by, you know, all of the meat, that's, you know, like all of this meat that, you know, that our bodies are made out of, and all these animals. So 99% of all of that flesh is actually under human control. There's a better way of saying that, but it kind of gives you a perspective to what degree, like, we have really disturbed the balance of nature by confining animals and breeding them, and you know, inflating their numbers so significantly. But the point that I wanted to make is that no, we're not talking about completely releasing all of the animals. I think they deserve a retirement plan. I think they need to be retired to sanctuaries where they can live out the rest of their lives. They wouldn't like multiply to continue, you know, the next generations, but they would be able to live out the rest of their lives in peace. I think that's the least that humans owe them, is a retirement plan. But yeah, so that was the point.
And Joe?
Oh,
Go ahead,
I
Joe.
passed. It's all right. I passed. I forgot what I was going to
Oh.
say. Sorry.
Go ahead, Cynthia.
I have so many things to say. So the end goal in this would be to also get people to flip over to a predominantly vegetarian or vegan diet, correct? And how do you propose to do that? Because there are so many meat eaters in the world.
Well, I mean, this is a complicated question. Obviously, in order to liberate all the animals, you would need a lot of people who are actually in favor of doing this. And so, you know, which one is going to come first, right? The chicken or the egg? The animal liberation or everyone going vegan? And I mean, realistically, they're both going to happen. Well, more people need to actually be conscious of the situation that animals are in. Well, first of all, more people need to support this idea, the idea that I just presented in Egora, the animal liberation idea. People need to, if people don't go completely vegan, then people should be cutting out the amount of animal products that they consume. Maybe, and drawing a line somewhere. I mean, obviously, every bit helps, because every dollar that you spend on, you know, meat, dairy, or whatever, that's money that's going to continue this, you know, the process. It's making the industry stronger. So obviously changing your lifestyle has a huge impact. Or maybe you cut out all animal products that are store-bought, and maybe you still go hunting and fishing. I hope that you're a good hunter so that the animals don't suffer when you hunt them. Or, well, obviously they're going to suffer, but they don't have to suffer any longer than, well, whatever the minimum amount of suffering is. But yeah, so yeah, let's just say I hope you're a good hunter, because if you're not, then I might become a good hunter and start hunting you, which I think should be my freedom too. So anyways, but that's, so again, we're talking about expanding freedom. So how's that going to happen? Yeah, I think people need to cut down on their consumption of animal products. People, yeah, and people need to support ideas. People need to have these discussions. But we're moving in that direction, because I mean, if we want to minimize violence and suffering, this is clearly the way to go. And I think people do really want to minimize violence and suffering. We just need to make it easy for people to do that.
We would like to hear what you have to say, Jody.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, and well said. And I'm sorry for being late to the meeting. I think from what I know now, the most impact we can have is at the legislative level. And I've recently changed my perspective, because the government is one of the biggest consumers or stockpilers of animal products. I mean, just today, Biden signed a legislation to reduce down the speed of slaughter from like 300 chickens per second to 140 chickens per second.
Wow.
I know it's mind-boggling, but you can see just the legislation can make such a huge impact. Just imagine a second on just one slaughter line, the slow of speed from 300 to 140 just by a stroke. And I know still 140 chickens being slaughtered every second is no laughing matter. Sorry for me being facetious, but it's huge. The government stockpiles, I don't know, millions and millions of tons of animal products in their stockpile, cheese, dairy. So I think the legislature, and I'm not saying that me being a vegan doesn't impact animal slaughter or animal cruelty in a small and also small extent, and also me being active in my community is good. It's a start where everybody starts. But now I have evolved into thinking that the legislation, the systems of oppression, that's where the biggest change needs to happen. That's where we need to organize, is to lobby. You know, it took a while to have two prominent vegan. Um, I know Representative Adam Schiff is a vegan, and Senator Cory Booker is a vegan, and even Bernie raised his voice against animal slaughter during the debates. So, because otherwise, it's just we are on our own individual level, we are only accomplishing very little. The government is still stockpiling. The system of oppressions, till they are disassembled, it's going to make very little difference as far as total animal suffering. And I'm willing to hear your perspective and how to do that, also. Thank you.
And Stacy had her hand up next. Hey, Stacy.
Yeah, back when they stopped using horses so much for transportation, when the cars came out, they ended up with killing a lot of horses. So if you're talking about ending the domestication, you're talking about a massive killing operation. How do you feel about that?
Well, I thought I made the point that we should be providing a retirement package for these animals. And I mean, like a real retirement package where they go to a sanctuary and live out the rest of their lives.
To take that mass of animals and put them somewhere where they can be taken care of and not just die a very slow, painful death because they're not being taken care of adequately. To break up the care that they're getting, put them someplace where it's going to be a mess and you're going to see horrible things happen to them. I just can't
well, you don't let horrible things happen to them. You make sure that they don't. And so I encourage you to actually visit like a local animal farm sanctuary where people, typically vegans, but not always, are dedicated to creating it.
Visit one of those shelters and see what it takes to take care of those animals. It is more expensive in many cases than taking care of people, and we're not even taking care of people.
Well, people brought them into this world. People created this problem. The least people can do is afford these animals. Frankly, it's ridiculous to say. I mean, Yeah, I mean, to me, it's, yeah, just give them some place where they can live and just be free. You brought them into this world, give them a place to live out their lives. If Yeah, I mean, it's just to me, it's so
It's a
basic
lot
and
more
obvious.
complicated than that, though, to honor them with a proper. You can't just throw them out in the wild. It just doesn't work that way. They have to
It,
have individualized care.
it's not complicated. It's just you just don't want to foot the bill. That's all it is.
I
It's all about
think
money.
taking care of lots of animals on hobby farms, lots of different types, and it is complicated.
Well, frankly, they should be getting taken care of right now as they are in the factory farms, but they're not because they are cutting costs in every way. So these animals are living in atrocious conditions against the law. So the laws are being violated, but actually, since it's standard practice to violate the law, then it's actually legal. As long as it's legal to have a standard practice of violating the law, then they can get
So
away
you're
with it. I
talking
mean,
about two different instances. If they're really doing horrible things that are against the law, that's a different thing than just liberating all animals, all domesticated animals, and finding a place for them. I think those are two different issues.
Well, however we solve that problem, whether they're released into the wild or whether they are given a good, comfortable living sanctuary to live out the rest of their lives, whatever it takes. The point is, it's got to get done.
Cynthia?
Actually, Joe's had his hand up for a long time. So, Joe, mute. You're muted.
Arr. Yeah, I keep on thinking that I have something to say, and then I realize I don't have something to say. So keep going. I'm going to come up with something eventually.
I see your point, Staci. And I both agree and disagree. I know that's going to shock everybody here. But I would tell you that I had a dog for many years, and quite frankly, to get her away from my side would have been a job just not worth doing. So it's not like we're just going to force all these animals into the wild if they don't want to go. Like it's like you're not talking about, oh, are you happy in this house here? Well, you have to leave anyway. I'm liberating you. That wouldn't make any sense. And I would say if you sent them to a rehab, that they could be trained to go back into the wild if they were designed to do so. However, on the other hand, what humans do to animals is unbelievable. Like those terrier dogs with the big eyes. Like they breed those specifically for that, and their eyes literally pop out of their heads because they're too big for the socket. Now, if that's not cruel and unusual punishment, I don't know what is. Like, how could you bring something into the world knowing that you're going to force it to suffer just because it looks a certain way? How does that make any freaking sense? That is an abomination. And that's just dogs. That's not even talking about, rabbits that they use for lab testing and dogs they use for also lab testing. Like there's just this myriad of things that people do to animals that is just, it's an abomination. Like I can't think of any other word to say except it is just an abomination. And quite frankly, if it takes getting rid of some of these people so there's more room for animals, then I say, here, let's cull the herd. I cede the floor.
Anybody else want to go before I do? Nope. Okay. That's funny. I wanted to say that it definitely seems unrealistic to free all the animals without having a alternative plan, effective plan that's well organized. Because that's plenty of animals. I believe though that the companies who are doing these atrocities should be responsible of the bill to create the sanctuaries and to provide the care that's needed for these animals. I believe that the only way to make that happen, of course, is forced legislation. Otherwise, they're not going to take that responsibility to make that happen. But other than that, that seems like a really unrealistic thing to do, even though we find it humane to do, not humane, whatever the word is for that, for animals. But is that humane? I think is that the same thing for animals too? I'm gonna go ahead and say it is. But yeah, so that's the only way to really take care of that responsibility. I feel is forcing legislation upon the companies to take care of that budget, and freeing the animals to. And but no, I see Jody. I don't know how to say your name. Hopefully, I'm saying it right. But you said that animals have been here before humans and they will survive. Animals have been here before humans and they will survive. I don't believe domesticated animals will survive. I don't believe they, depending on, like, I mean, no, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know their life situation and what they're feeding on and everything. And, I don't know. But it just seems like the domesticated animals don't know how to survive. You know what I mean? I feel like they've already been tamed down too much. Just like us, just like if you take a human being and throw us into a jungle where our indigenous ancestors or peoples are, every indigenous person, every story I've come across of like the Amazonians and all of them, they don't believe a human being who has been civilized or tamed or whatever you want to call it, domesticated, will survive in the jungle. We've gone through our whole life not knowing how to do that. So just like an animal, a domesticated animal, we throw the domesticated animal to the world of not being cared for, and they have to fend for themselves. I mean, depending on the animal, like a cow should know to go eat grass. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought about it fully about that part of the thing, but yeah.
So
Stacy has her hand up. Joe has his hand up, and Joy has her hand up. Actually, Joe's hand was raised, but it wasn't written in the chat. So, Stacy, technically, you would be first because you're written in the chat. No,
Well, Joe has been trying to raise his hand for a while. I really want to hear what has on his mind.
Yeah.
I would also like to hear.
okay.
Yeah.
I guess we're talking about the 40 acres and a mule analogy, where the slaves after the Civil War were supposed to get some share of the plantation's property given to them. So that's one thing. Maybe we could say that the industries who have profited off of this should have to be broken up and somehow released to funding the care of the animals. Will that take care of all of it? We don't know, because they didn't put a whole lot of taking care of them to begin with. It was just about breeding them to slaughter. So how can you give them a full life? Do you let them reproduce? That's another thing. You're taking away their freedom if they can't reproduce. Is it like tigers where you can, take care of them because there are only a few of them, as opposed to, the billions of animals that we slaughter every minute? Yeah, and I think of other things too, but it's complicated. It's definitely our responsibility. I don't think it's something we can fix, though. I don't. And besides these things, I don't think they can survive in the wild. They don't have the instincts for it anymore. I think it's been bred out of them.
You want to go ahead and go, Stacy?
I would just say, as far as Tommy, you said it needs to be legislated, and absolutely, if this were a normal world and our government actually worked, but it clearly doesn't. And I believe that we have to get together and raise our voices and use our wallets to and take control of the media to make sure that we get what we want. If we say this is what we want, we have the power. If we get the people together and take care of this outside of government, we can do it.
Joy was
Go ahead.
next, and then Cezary. Joy?
Okay, I had to unmute. Thank you. I have a couple of issues. One, we talk about domesticated animals and what do we do? It's, in my opinion, we're kind of like our domesticated animal, we're raising like a child. But by the time we're done raising the child is growing and able to go out in the world and take care of themselves. But when I get my 3.5 pound little chihuahua that finally gets to the end of her life and is having seizures, do I let her suffer for months on end, or do I put her out of her misery? I chose to put her out of the misery at the advice of the vet. So when do we stop the suffering? And that goes, now it's against the law, except in, I think, Oregon and maybe Florida, support the fact that if you want to end your life because you're in a terminal situation, I believe they agree, they allow. So as far as that goes, what do we do? And you say maybe rehab domesticated animals to allow them back into the wild. Maybe not. And then that's where animals are concerned. What do we do? How do we do? And I agree. Yeah. Okay. Basically, we quit eating meat. We're boycotting, and the farmers are going to quit breeding their animals. And I agree. I missed who I said, control the reproduction of the animals so that they don't reproduce when we quit eating them, they are overpopulated. And then there's back on another subject way back when, psychopath people, and what do we do with them? I had a nephew, heaven help me, have a nephew, that he was 13 years old maybe, and whatever our incident was, the police were called. And one police officer told my mother that that boy would be trouble, because when the cop looked into his eyes, he said, that boy is blank inside. He has a blank stare and he will be trouble. So 2 separate issues, but both of them brought up. So I've had my piece. I now let somebody else confuse the world.
Go Cezary. Cezary's turn next, and go ahead.
I'll try to do the opposite and not confuse the world. First of all, that's not a very nice thing to say to a child, because it seems like he said that to the child's face. That's not how you raise children. Okay, it wasn't directly to the child, it was just to the mother. Whatever. I mean, people are born in all kinds of different ways, and we have to be compassionate towards them, even if we don't like that, or we end up creating a. I like this. It's like an African proverb. Like a child. I'm gonna kill this. I'm gonna butcher it, but they say a child that doesn't. A child abandoned by its village will burn it down to feel its warmth. I love that. That strikes a chord. But anyways, so yeah, not that it's not related, because it is related, but going back to really the main idea here at stake is animal liberation. Realistically, what it means is cows, pigs, and chickens, or the way that they currently, the domesticated ones. It means that breed of them going extinct. I mean, literally, that's what it means. They're not going to survive in the wild. Obviously, within 1 or 2 generations, it means that all of those animals are gone. All of that living biomass is just not replaced. But of course, the exact steps, how we get there and how do we maximize the dignity and the regard and freedom, obviously it's tricky. So, and the idea was about trying to make the industries do that. I don't think we should blame the industries. It's really easy to say the industries did that, but no, it was the industries collaborating with the consumers. It was everybody doing it together. It was the assassins were doing the dirty work of their customers. So it's not like we should just blame the industries. It's whatever gets the problem solved. We shouldn't be trying to blame anyone for that, because frankly, we're all complicit in that. I used to eat animals a lot. Like that was, I once had a life crisis when I realized that I ate all the animals I wanted to eat. I'm like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I ate all the animals I wanted. I had like no real other purpose in life. It was actually pretty weird. But just to wrap up, point is that this is a mess. That this is a real mess, and it is an ethical nightmare. But this doesn't mean that we don't fix it and we just continue it. It's like, well, this is a mess. It's so complicated to fix, so let's just keep doing it and keep paying into it. I mean, this does come down to a resolve, and it's both an individual resolve to not contribute to it individually by switching to a more plant-based diet, cutting out animals and going vegan, hopefully, or at least hunting for your own animals, so you actually experience what the real cost of that is. And then it's developing a political resolve to have that as well. And this is why, coming back to this idea that I was presenting, I hope you will support this idea, and I hope you will explore it further. I hope you will watch that video that is linked in that in my idea for animal liberation, so that you see what's really involved. So yeah, please do research that idea and support it, so that other people may explore it further and also learn from this. Thank you.
Well, it's close to the 1 hour mark. And thank you, Cezary. It sounds like you gave us some of your closing remarks on this topic and idea that's close to your heart. So who would like to go next with their closing remarks?
Maybe we could hear from Joe.
Joe, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah. For me to support or not support this idea, I definitely have to have it be refined more. Kind of go to the heart of what is the issue. I know where it's going, but I can't say that we have precise words for it yet. If that means anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we understand.
Yeah, what should I say? Hands up or something? I'm sorry.
No, you're
if I'm
fine. Go
cutting
ahead,
in.
Jody. What's your closing remarks? What is your closing remark?
Yeah, I think this is a very pertinent issue. This subject is clear and present danger. Climate change is here to come, and animal farming is hastening it, because animal farming or animal slaughter farming produces almost a third of the greenhouse gases produced in the atmosphere, and we can do something about it. Food is essential, and pandemic, it's a zoonotic pandemic. We're not just done with the pandemics yet. We're not done with HIV, Ebola, SARS, MERS, BSE. We have ignored them, but COVID has grabbed us by our throats, and we need to stop the next pandemic. We need to address this issue, and by cutting out animal products consumption, switching to plant-based diet, and getting involved in the legislative changes is imperative. We need to do it. That's it.
I'd like to go next for their closing remark.
I'm happy to jump in. I want to say thank you very much, Cezary, for bringing up this subject, this topic. I really didn't have an opinion, but it really has opened up my mind about this. And clearly, we have an imbalance in this regard. The eating of the animals, we don't need to do it the way we do it. So while I can't support the idea the way it is, I clearly see a need to move at least in that direction. There's nothing wrong with that, and nothing really keeping us from doing that. So thank you very much, and great discussion. Thanks, everybody.
And then Cynthia or Joy.
I think in the discussion that it's going off in multiple directions. that need to be separated and then compiled at the end. It's like animals and humans and what you're going to eat and how we're going to control population and liberate animals as well, and what you're going to do with the prisoners. Too many topics. We need to
Yes.
choose and address
Mm.
every single thing that has been brought out in its own topic.
Yes, we understand. Thank you, Joy.
I would disagree with that. I think it's all related because people are in essence animals, and when they're in prison, they are animals that are in prison, just like the animals that we eat. The only difference being is that someone has told us that they did something wrong, and that they're not fit to live in society for some reason, even though it is society that made them that way. Anyway, for anyone who is listening, I would encourage you to really look at what the supply chain looks like for animals. Really think about what it feels like for them to be in those tiny cages and be transported all over the place in the back of a truck while they're being swung around and hung from meat hooks. And I mean, it's an abomination. I think I've mentioned this before. But yeah, I mean, even when you start looking at the transportation, as I mentioned before, the chicken trucks, I used to watch the chicken trucks when I was a truck driver, and they have these tiny little cages, and there's just dead chickens everywhere. There's eggs flying all over the place. I don't know how any human with any kind of a heart or empathy or feeling can think about something like that and be okay with it. If you want to eat meat, that's on you. But at least, at the very minimum, we should at least be humanely treating these animals, like you would treat your pet, because a life well lived is what we all strive for. So why would you not want that for animals as well? Anyway, that's all I had to say. Very grateful. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
And for me, what I think is the most important for me, the aspect of just not eating animals in general, is the nutritional point of view. There's no nutritional value in eating factory farm animals or eating anything from big farming. Totally malnourished, totally an imbalanced in nutrient value for us, and actually causes a lot of the health problems that we have. Those meats that are eaten, whether it's chicken, whether it's cow, pig, all of it is nutritional imbalance for the human body from my research and studies. And then the meat that we're even that eat the meat that, not saying supposed to, but the recommended meat from people who are more humane, you could consider them, is it's less than 2 ounces at a time. We're not meant to consume a pound or 2 pounds of meat at our dinner plate. So even reducing that at a nutritional point of view, all this stuff can be reduced tremendously, basically. And for me personally, real quick, is I have discovered personally that I after going through my fasting and detoxing my body and getting myself back to a healthy state of being, I can't even barely eat any meat no more. I can't even eat eggs or dairy. I'm actually sensitive towards them. My body is, and my body can't handle it. And I used to eat tons of eggs, dairy, meat, everything, gorged myself in it. But going through a fast and detox my body and restore my health, naturally the body has become sensitive and can't even consume it no more. I personally mainly eat vegetables and fermented vegetables, and that's mainly it, really. And so I don't consume fish or meat, really, or eggs or dairy, really, at all. That's from a nutritional point of view. I think that's fairly important that we know this, because even then, getting people to focus on their health will definitely reduce the animal consumption. That's all.
Did everybody make a closing remark? I wasn't sure if Kevin went.
No, Kevin did not go. I don't think I heard
Oh.
Kevin.
Kevin, did you want to, did you give a closing remark?
Yeah, yeah, for me, yeah, it was a great topic, this call. Thank you very much for that. I do agree with a lot of it, and I have some issues with some of it. I think that that's probably is something that's scalable, something that would have to be kind of phased in terms of to try and minimize any the suffering of the existing animals as we transition to an animal-free society. I think that would have to be something phased. But also within the concept is like how many people are reliant on that industry for their work, and just looking at how you would look at, as much as you transition people within fossil fuels to work in other markets, you'd have to do the same thing with people that are entirely, dependent on the existing, meat for food business. But yeah, but I totally agree that we need to remove all suffering and all that, for sure. But anyways, thank you. That was supposed to be closing comment. But
Is
All
that
right.
everybody?
I think that is everybody now. And just want to thank you all so much for your participation and contribution. I would like to go ahead and measure everybody's basically measure everybody's initial agreement with this last or with final decision on whether they support this idea or not. And if we all could raise our hands who have decided to still support this or changed their mind and now support this idea of animal liberation in general.
It looks like we have the same support as before. Or I guess we lost Joy. We gained Jody. And we still have Cynthia Cezary. Oh, Joy has her hand up as well. So we have everybody still. We have Tommy now and Jody. So we have 5 as opposed to just 3. So good job, Staci.
Thank you with that, Staci. And now, let's see here. Awesome. Okay, so for our viewers and listeners, if you like this idea, don't forget to support it in Egora. It's spelled EGORA hyphen capital I, capital L, capital P, period, org. O-R-G, org. Also in Egora, you will find information for our upcoming meetings as well. And finally, like our page and join our group called Citizen Assembly on Facebook. Thank you so much for all of you watching.
Would anyone like to show me about how crypto key stuff